Pierre, would you like to make an opening?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. First of all, I want to thank you on my own behalf, on behalf of my client, Mr. McCarthy, for your patience and attention during the jury selection process, and your willingness to sacrifice so much of your personal lives to perform this important civic duty. Now, this isn't Michael McCarthy. He is not guilty of killing Bella Bowman. He had nothing to do with her tragic death. Michael did not even know that Bella was dead until the police who arrested him told him. So who did kill her? We think her mother, Michelle Bowman, was probably responsible for her death. But of course, it's not up to the defense to prove that. It is the prosecution who must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Michael McCarthy is guilty. Now, because you listened to the prosecutor carefully during his opening statement, you know that the prosecution's case rests entirely upon the uncorroborated and unbelievable testimony of Michelle Bowman. She will try to convince you that Michael did it because he thought Bella was a demon. More about that in a minute. First, let me tell you a little about Michael McCarthy. Yesterday was his 37th birthday. He was born and grew up in South Boston. He went to a Catholic elementary school, and then South Boston High School. So he left in his senior year. He went on to get his GED. He then spent a couple of semesters at Bunker Hill Community College. Back then, he worked some summers for the city of Boston as a red shirt, cleaning parks and public facilities. He got an apprentice plumbing license so he could work with his father's plumbing business in South Boston. Michael had lived with his mother because his parents were divorced when he was a child, but he remained close to both parents. His mother worked for the Federal Reserve Bank and then for the city of Boston as an administrator for many years. She passed away in 2013. His father, Joseph, who moved the plumbing business to Quincy, recently retired, and Michael's older brother has taken over the business. By the time Michael was 17 or 18 years old, he became involved with drugs. He started using painkillers like Percocet, Vicodin, OxyContin, and by his mid-20s, he became addicted to and physically dependent upon heroin. He continued to live with his mother, and he worked sporadically for his father. Now, in 2011, Michael experienced an epileptic seizure. He briefly lost consciousness, fell, and broke his collarbone, requiring surgery and the reconstruction of his left shoulder with a steel plate and screws. Since that time, he has limited use of his left arm and cannot lift heavy weights. He's been treated for this seizure disorder with medication, but nevertheless, he still has periodic seizures. Fortunately, Michael had a Pomeranian dog by the name of Bailey. Bailey was able to sense a seizure before it happened and alert Michael to it so Michael could prepare himself. As a result, Michael and Bailey were inseparable. Michael is intelligent and has always been interested in world affairs. He is religious, and for years, every Sunday, he has attended Mass at the Sacred Heart Church in Quincy. He has studied the history of religion and the philosophy of good and evil, and he practices Reiki, a technique based on the principle that healing energy can be channeled by means of touch. He writes poetry and songs. The Commonwealth claims, however, that Michael was obsessed with the occult, with Satanism, and with demonology. According to the prosecutor, this obsession gave Michael a motive to kill Bella, that he killed her because he believed she was a demon. That is absurd. In the first place, Michael had, as you will hear, a loving relationship with Bella. Even Rochelle says he was very good with her. He took care of her when Rochelle was unavailable. You'll hear how he called her honey, good girl. And when the little girl had nightmares about scary monsters, he taught her to battle them with love, to think of love, and blow the heads of the monsters off with love. Except for the incoherent ranting of Michael Sprinsky, a homeless heroin addict who will be a witness, you will hear there is absolutely no one who says that Michael ever mistreated Bella. So about this demon theory, that's a story that Rochelle cooked up to make sense of the absurd claim that Michael killed Bella. On what evidence will the prosecution try to prove Michael's supposed obsession? 2 books that Michael took out of the Boston Public Library that were at the Maxwell Street apartment. One, titled The Other God by Yuri Stoyanov, is a history book which provides a comprehensive history of the role good and evil plays in religion. The other book is Demons, the Devil Possession, and Exorcism, and it's by Anthony Finley, a former Catholic cleric. It traces the role of demons and demonology throughout history. These books show that Michael had a somewhat scholarly interest in how good and evil were treated in traditional religions, including Catholicism. Except for the unbelievable testimony of Rochelle and the drug addict Michael Sprinsky, who will talk about devil stuff, you will hear absolutely nothing that supports the claim that Michael was obsessed with demons. Michael lives in the real world. His relationships with men and women are largely shaped by that world, one of drugs and addiction. One of the South Boston friends Michael grew up with and went to school with is Michael Sprinsky. To this day, Sprinsky is a heroin addict who lives on the street when he is not in jail or committed to the Bridgewater Treatment Center for Alcohol and Drugs. But when he could, Michael looked out for Sprinsky and took him in when Sprinsky had nowhere to go. That's Michael, mild-mannered, struggling with drug addiction, good with children, a dog lover, partially disabled, intelligent, and loyal. Now let me tell you a little about Rochelle Bond, the one and only person on whom the Commonwealth relies to prove Michael's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. She's 41 years old, almost 5 years older than Michael. When she met him, she was living at 115 Maxwell Street in Dorchester with her 2-year-old daughter, Bella. Rochelle Bond was addicted to heroin then and has used heroin, crack cocaine, marijuana, and all sorts of pills since she was an adolescent. Her parental rights to her 2 older children, Calvin and Jaden, who were each fathered by a different man, were terminated by the state because of neglect. Both children were taken from her and her parental rights were terminated. Now, Bella was born in 2012, conceived in a tent during Occupy Boston. In the first year of Bella's life, the State Department of Children's and Families substantiated 2 separate 51A complaints of neglect against Rochelle Bond concerning Bella. Again, DCF intervened because Rochelle's drug use was placing little Bella at risk. Now, as for those demons, the evidence will show that it is Rochelle, not Michael, who has a lifelong obsession with demons and the supernatural. Let me read you what Rochelle wrote in her journal during the summer of 2015, at about the time that Bella disappeared. This is what she wrote, and I quote, "How come so many children go missing a year? At least 1 million children go missing in the U.S. alone, and no one seems to know where they go. That's because the leaders of every country get together and torture and rape and kill these innocent children every year, just so they can drink their blood and eat their flesh, so that these reptilian demons can have a moment's sanity." Written by Rochelle Bond during the summer of 2015. Rochelle's journal goes on to say, and I quote, "Now it's time for us to join together and beat them before they wipe us out, and torture and kill our children and loved ones for their own sick, satanic, demonic pleasure." And now, let me read you one of the first things that Rochelle said to the police when she was arrested in this case. She said, quote, "There was always a shadow that had been following me around, like whatever it is has been following me my whole life. It was huge. I believe in that kind of spiritual stuff." But here's the most revealing thing Rochelle said about her demons. It was just months before Bella disappeared. She told a woman by the name of Nicole Marquis, who will be a witness in this case, a strange and ominous story. Rochelle and Nicole met at the New Horizons Clinic, where they both were being treated for their drug addiction. Rochelle told Nicole her parents were, quote, demonic. And she said, Rochelle told Nicole that when she was a child, both her parents had tried to pull Rochelle's soul out of her body, but they couldn't because Rochelle was too strong. Now, this is what Rochelle told Nicole Marquis in April of 2015. Rochelle pointed to the back of her head and said, that's where her mother had hit her with a hammer. And listen to this. She went on to tell Nicole that now the demons were trying to get into Bella as a ploy to get into Rochelle. It was Rochelle who believed that Bella was a demon or that she was inhabited by demons. According to Nicole, that day, Rochelle then began to have a conversation with a stranger who was sitting nearby. She described it as an imaginary conversation because the woman wasn't responding, but Rochelle was talking out loud. And Rochelle started talking to this woman some distance away, saying, quote, "I know you're one of them," Rochelle said. "Why are you looking at me?" Then Rochelle told Nicole, she's one of them. They're all out there. Paranoid, delusional, not living in the real world. At the end of this trial, you will realize that Rochelle was projecting her own delusions onto Michael, and she blamed him for what she, in fact, did. Their relationship, you will hear, was initially one of convenience. In early 2015,